3 weeks ago, I discovered my wife was having an affair with her boss. Not through some dramatic scene or catching them in the act, but through something much simpler. We had just finished being intimate around midnight when she got up to take a shower. She left her phone charging in the kitchen and forgot about it. When it started buzzing repeatedly while she was washing off our intimacy, curiosity got the better of me. The messages were from someone saved as office emergency contact. Cute. Real cute messages that had nothing to do with emergencies and everything to do with how much they missed each other, planning their next hotel meetup, and discussing how to keep their secret. 6 months. 6 months of lies, excuses about working late, and weekend team-building events that suddenly made perfect sense. Here's what most guys would do: storm into the bathroom, wave the phone around, demand explanations, maybe throw some stuff. That's exactly what she'd expect. That's probably what she's prepared for. But that approach hands her all the power. She gets to play victim, make excuses, turn it around somehow. No thank you. Instead, I sat there reading through months of evidence while she sang in the shower like she didn't have a care in the world. Every "I love you" text to him while kissing me goodnight. Every lie about staying late when she was actually in some hotel room. Every time she looked me in the eye and lied without blinking. The anger was there, sure, but underneath it was something colder, something calculating. By the time she got out of the shower, I had screenshots of everything sent to myself, and her phone was back exactly where she left it. She never knew I'd seen any of it. The next morning, she kissed me goodbye and told me she'd be working late again, another emergency project that required staying until 9. I just smiled and said I understood, kept playing the role of the trusting husband while planning something much more satisfying than a screaming match. It took me 2 days to track down his wife. Social media made it surprisingly easy. Corporate family pictures on the company website helped too. Her name was Victoria, and one look at their family photos told me everything I needed to know. Happy marriage. 2 kids. Completely clueless about what her husband was doing during his supposed business trips. The first phone call was tricky. How do you tell a complete stranger that her husband is cheating? Start with facts, not emotions. I introduced myself, explained the connection, and simply asked if she'd noticed any changes in his behavior lately. The long pause told me she had. Those weekend trips that started 6 months ago, the late-night texting he claimed was work-related, the sudden interest in staying fit and updating his wardrobe. She'd been noticing the signs but trying to convince herself there was an innocent explanation. There always is, until there isn't. When I offered to send her the screenshots, she agreed immediately. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. She'd gone through everything twice. Her voice was shaky but determined when she said she wanted to help me confront them both. The plan we came up with was beautifully simple. She would come to my house at exactly 6:30 on Friday evening. My wife always got home by 6 on Fridays, her actual end-of-week routine when she wasn't busy destroying our marriage. Victoria would walk in with me, and we'd let the situation unfold naturally. What if she denies everything? Victoria asked during our planning call. She will, I told her. That's why you're going to have your own evidence ready. Your husband's phone records, the hotel receipts you found, everything. Let her dig her hole deeper before we bury her in facts. Friday arrived with perfect timing. My wife, Natalie, got home at 5:55, earlier than usual. She was in a good mood, probably because she thought she was successfully juggling 2 relationships without either of us knowing. She even suggested we order takeout and watch a movie. Quality time with the husband while she texted her boyfriend. At 6:25, I told her I was expecting someone to stop by briefly, a work contact who needed to pick up some documents. Nothing unusual about that. She barely looked up from her phone, probably texting him about their weekend plans. When Victoria's car pulled into the driveway at exactly 6:30, I felt that cold satisfaction settle in my chest. No anger, no nerves, just the calm that comes with being completely prepared. My wife was about to learn that actions have consequences, and sometimes those consequences arrive at your front door. I walked outside to meet Victoria, and we exchanged a brief nod. She looked nervous but determined. We'd rehearsed this moment, but the actual execution would depend on Natalie's reactions. Victoria was attractive, well-dressed, and looked exactly like someone who might have legitimate business with me. Perfect. Ready for this? I asked quietly as we approached the front door. More than ready, she replied. He's been lying to me for months. Time for some truth. I opened the front door and called out casually, "Honey, my colleague is here." Then I walked into the living room with Victoria right beside me. Natalie looked up from her phone, and I watched her face change in real time. First confusion, then alarm, then barely controlled panic. She clearly wasn't expecting me to bring home another woman, especially not one who looked like she belonged in the same social circles. "Who is this?" she demanded, standing up quickly and crossing her arms. The defensive posture kicked in immediately. I smiled, enjoying the moment more than I probably should have. "This is Victoria. She's been wanting to meet you for quite some time now." Natalie's eyes darted between us, her mind clearly racing through possibilities. None of them good. Meet me? Why would she want to meet me? Victoria stepped forward slightly, her own smile sharp and knowing. "Because my husband talks about you constantly. All those late-night conversations you two have been having." The color drained from Natalie's face so fast I thought she might actually faint. Her mouth opened and closed twice before any sound came out. "I don't know what you're talking about," she finally managed, but her voice cracked on every word. That's when I delivered the line I'd been rehearsing for 3 weeks. "Actually, honey, you do. Victoria is your boss's wife, and she's very interested in discussing those midnight text messages you've been sending her husband, Marcus." The silence that followed my words was deafening. Natalie stood frozen, staring at Victoria like she was seeing a ghost. Her phone slipped from her hand and hit the floor with a sharp crack. For someone who'd been so confident in her lies, she sure fell apart quickly when faced with the truth. "Your boss's wife," she repeated slowly, like saying it out loud might make it less true. "That's impossible. You don't know anything about my work." Victoria laughed, but there wasn't any humor in it. "Actually, I know quite a bit about your work, especially the overtime you've been putting in with my husband." Natalie's defensive walls went up immediately. "I have no idea what you're implying, but this is ridiculous." "Honey," she turned to me desperately, "tell this woman she's mistaken. Tell her you don't believe whatever crazy story she's telling you." I leaned against the door frame, completely relaxed. Why would I tell her that? She's not the one who's been lying for 6 months. 6 months. Natalie's voice jumped an octave. "What are you talking about? I haven't been lying about anything." Victoria pulled out her phone and started scrolling. "Really? Because according to my husband's phone records, you two have been texting each other an average of 47 times per day. Most of them after 10 p.m. "Those are work messages," Natalie said quickly. "Too quickly. Sometimes projects require communication outside normal hours. Projects like Room 237 at the Marriott last Tuesday." Victoria's voice was ice cold. "Because that's exactly what he told me he was doing, working on a project." The look on Natalie's face was priceless. Pure panic mixed with the dawning realization that she'd been caught in a web of lies that was collapsing around her. She looked between Victoria and me like a trapped animal. "That's not what happened," she stammered. "You're taking things out of context. Business meetings sometimes happen in hotels. It's completely normal." I finally pushed off from the door frame and walked closer. "Business meetings at midnight. Because that's when you texted him Tuesday night from the hotel parking lot. Something about how much you enjoyed your private meeting." Her face went white. "You went through my phone." "I didn't have to," I said. "Victoria was kind enough to share your messages from her husband's phone. Want to hear some of your greatest hits?" Victoria didn't wait for permission. She started reading directly from her screen. "Tuesday, 11:47 p.m., can't stop thinking about tonight. You drive me crazy. Wednesday, 12:15 a.m., wish I could stay over instead of going home to him. Thursday, 10:30 p.m., 2 more days until we can be alone again." With each message, Natalie seemed to shrink smaller. Her elaborate lies were crumbling in real time, and there was nowhere left to hide. "Stop," she whispered. "Just stop." "Why?" I asked. Getting uncomfortable hearing your own words. "There's more. So much more." She turned to me with tears starting to form. You don't understand. It's not what you think. It's complicated. Complicated. Victoria's voice was sharp. You mean like how you told my husband you were thinking about leaving your marriage? Or how you two discussed what it would be like to move in together? That hit Natalie like a physical blow. She actually staggered backward and had to catch herself on the arm of the couch. He told you that? He didn't tell me anything, Victoria said. I read it. All of it. Every plan you two made behind our backs. Every lie you told to cover your tracks. Every time you laughed about how clueless we were. Natalie looked at me desperately. You have to believe me. I never said those things. She's twisting everything around. I pulled out my own phone and opened the screenshots I'd taken weeks ago. Really? Because I have the same conversations right here. Word for word. Should I start reading too? Where did you get those? Her voice was barely a whisper now. From your phone 3 weeks ago, right after we made love and you went to shower. Your boyfriend couldn't wait until morning to tell you how much he missed you. The timing hit her like a sledgehammer. She remembered that night perfectly, the intimate moment we'd shared, followed immediately by her betrayal. She slumped onto the couch, finally understanding that every move she'd made had been discovered and documented. How long have you known? She asked quietly. Long enough to watch you lie to my face every single day since. Long enough to see you plan weekend getaways with him while kissing me goodnight. Long enough to realize that every "I love you" you said to me was just practice for when you said it to him. Victoria put her phone away and looked at Natalie with pure disgust. My husband thinks he's been so clever. Thinks I don't notice when he comes home smelling like your perfume. Thinks I'm too stupid to question why he suddenly needs to work weekends. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, Natalie said, looking between us. It just developed over time. We tried to fight it. You tried to fight it. I couldn't help but laugh. Is that what you call booking hotel rooms twice a week? Is that what you call planning a future together? You didn't fight anything. You dove headfirst into destroying 2 marriages. She was crying now, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of someone who'd been caught and was facing consequences for the first time. What do you want from me? What's this all about? Victoria and I exchanged a look. This was the moment we'd planned for. This is about truth, I said. This is about both of us being done with lies and secrets and being treated like fools. This is about you facing exactly what you've done. And this is about ending this fantasy you've been living, Victoria added. Because it ends tonight. All of it. Natalie wiped her eyes, and suddenly her whole demeanor shifted. The tears stopped, her shoulders straightened, and that familiar defensive attitude kicked in. I'd seen this transformation before during arguments, but never when she was this cornered. Fine, she said, her voice steadier now. Yes, we've been seeing each other, but it's not some sordid affair like you're making it sound. We have genuine feelings for each other. Victoria made a sound of disgust. Genuine feelings. You're destroying 2 families for genuine feelings. You wouldn't understand, Natalie shot back. Your marriage might be perfect, but mine hasn't been for years. He's emotionally distant, never wants to talk about anything meaningful, comes home and just zones out in front of the TV. I had to admire the strategy. When caught red-handed, immediately make it the betrayed husband's fault. Classic deflection technique. Too bad I was ready for it. Emotionally distant, I said calmly. Is that what you call the weekend trips I planned for us? The date nights I suggested that you said you were too tired for? The conversations I tried to start that you said could wait because you were texting someone more important? She faltered for a second but recovered quickly. That's exactly what I mean. You think planning a weekend trip fixes everything. You never actually listen when I try to tell you what's wrong. When did you try to tell me what was wrong? Before or after you started sleeping with your boss? It's not about the timeline, she snapped. It's about years of feeling disconnected and alone in this marriage. Victoria had been listening to this exchange with growing irritation. Feeling alone. So your solution was to make sure I felt alone too. And his kids get to feel alone when their family falls apart. That's not my responsibility, Natalie said coldly. I didn't force anyone to do anything. We're both adults who made choices. The mask was completely off now. This wasn't the woman who cried and claimed it was all a mistake. This was someone who felt justified in her actions and was angry about getting caught. You're right, I said. You are adults who made choices, like the choice to laugh about how clueless your spouses were. Want to hear that conversation, Victoria? I scrolled through my screenshots until I found the one I was looking for. Here it is. Last Sunday, 2:15 p.m. Your husband writes, she actually believed I was at a client dinner until 11. And your response, mine thinks I'm at book club tonight. Sometimes I wonder if they're really this naive or just don't care enough to question anything. Victoria's hands clenched into fists. You called me naive while I was home taking care of our children. I was venting, Natalie said defensively. Everyone complains about their spouse sometimes. Venting. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You were making plans to move in together while mocking us for trusting you. That's not venting. That's calculating. It wasn't like that, she insisted, but her voice lacked conviction now. Victoria pulled up another message on her phone. Really? Because on March 15th, you told my husband, and I quote, we should start looking at apartments together, somewhere neither of them would think to look for us. That sounds pretty calculating to me. Natalie's face flushed red. We were just talking about hypotheticals. We never actually made any concrete plans. Hypotheticals. I laughed harshly. You picked out neighborhoods. You discussed lease terms. You even talked about which furniture you'd take from our house. How could you possibly know that? Because I've been watching you for 3 weeks. Every lie, every secret meeting, every time you came home and pretended nothing had happened. Did you know you smile differently when you're texting him? Did you know you hum his favorite songs while doing dishes? She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. You've been spying on me. I've been observing my wife turn into a stranger. There's a difference. Victoria stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the quiet neighborhood street. You know what the worst part is? You made us accomplices in your betrayal. Every time we trusted you, every time we made excuses for your behavior, every time we chose to believe your lies instead of our instincts. I never asked you to make excuses for anything, Natalie said. You didn't have to ask, I replied. That's what spouses do. We give each other the benefit of the doubt. Victoria turned back to face her. But you took that trust and used it as a weapon against us. Natalie was getting desperate now. I could see it in her eyes. The righteous anger was fading, replaced by the dawning realization that she'd lost control of the narrative completely. Look, I know this is bad. I know I made mistakes, but marriages fail sometimes. People grow apart. It happens every day. Marriages don't fail, I said quietly. People fail marriages. There's a difference. That's not fair. You can't put this all on me. I'm not putting anything on you that you didn't put there yourself. Every choice was yours. Every lie was yours. Every time you looked me in the eye and chose deception over honesty, that was you. Victoria nodded in agreement. And every time my husband came home and kissed me after being with you, that was a choice too. A choice to make me an unwilling participant in your affair. It's not that simple, Natalie protested, but even she didn't sound convinced anymore. Actually, it is that simple, I said. You wanted something more exciting than your marriage, so you took it. You wanted the stability of home and the thrill of an affair, so you tried to have both. You wanted to keep all your options open, so you lied to everyone involved. She slumped back into the couch, finally running out of justifications and deflections. So what happens now? What's this whole confrontation supposed to accomplish? I looked at Victoria, who nodded slightly. This was the moment we'd been building toward. Now you get to experience consequences, I said. Something you've been avoiding for 6 months. The word consequences hung in the air like a threat. Natalie's eyes darted between Victoria and me, trying to gauge just how bad this was about to get for her. What kind of consequences, she asked, and I could hear the fear creeping back into her voice. I pulled out a manila folder I'd left on the kitchen counter earlier. The kind that happens when someone spends 6 months documenting their own destruction. Her eyes fixed on the folder like it was a snake about to strike. What is that? Evidence. Timeline, financial records, hotel receipts, phone logs, screenshots of every message between you and him. I set it down on the coffee table between us. Everything a divorce attorney needs to establish a pattern of adultery. You're divorcing me. She said it like the thought had never occurred to her. Were you planning to stop seeing him? I asked. Were you planning to come clean and rebuild our marriage, or were you planning to keep living this double life until you figured out which option worked better for you? She didn't answer, which was answer enough. Victoria spoke up from across the room. My husband is about to face the same choice, except he won't get to choose. I filed for divorce this morning. Natalie's head snapped toward Victoria. This morning? But you just found out about this. I found out about this 3 days ago, Victoria corrected. I've spent the last 3 days consulting with attorneys, securing financial documents, and making sure our children's interests are protected. Unlike some people, I don't waste time on denial when I'm faced with evidence. 3 days, Natalie looked at me accusingly. You've been planning this for 3 days. I've been planning this for 3 weeks, I said. Ever since I discovered what you've been doing. Ever since I realized that every day I spent hoping you'd come clean was another day you spent lying to my face. She stood up abruptly and started pacing. This is insane. You can't just end a marriage over this. We can work through it. People do it all the time. Work through what exactly? I asked. Your affair? Your lies? Your complete lack of remorse? Your willingness to blame me for your choices? I can change. I can stop seeing him. We can go to counseling. Victoria laughed bitterly. You mean the same counseling you told my husband was pointless? The same counseling you said was just a way for guilty spouses to avoid real consequences? Natalie went pale. He told you about that conversation. He didn't tell me. I read it, right here in black and white. Victoria held up her phone. You told him that if either of us suggested counseling, it meant we were getting suspicious and you'd need to be more careful. That's not what I meant, Natalie said weakly. It's exactly what you meant, I said. You've been treating our marriage like a game, and now you're upset that the game is over. She stopped pacing and turned to face me directly. What do you want? Money. The house. Fine, keep whatever you want, but don't throw away 8 years of marriage over a mistake. A mistake. The words came out harder than I intended. 6 months of planning secret meetings is not a mistake. Discussing moving in together is not a mistake. Laughing about how stupid your husband is for trusting you is not a mistake. Okay, poor choice of words, but the point is we can fix this if you just give me a chance. Victoria walked back over and sat down across from us. He's not giving you a chance because you've already shown him exactly who you are, just like my husband showed me. What's that supposed to mean? It means that when someone lies to you for 6 months, you learn something important about their character, I explained. You learn that they're capable of looking you in the eye every single day while betraying everything you thought you meant to them. Everyone makes mistakes, she insisted. This wasn't a mistake, Victoria said firmly. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary or saying something hurtful in an argument. This was a calculated deception involving dozens of lies, elaborate cover stories, and emotional manipulation. Natalie sat back down, finally seeming to understand that her usual tactics weren't working. So that's it. You've already decided. I decided 3 weeks ago, I told her. I just wanted to see if you'd ever tell me the truth voluntarily, if you'd ever show even a hint of genuine remorse instead of making excuses. And you've spent 3 weeks testing me. I've spent 3 weeks watching you choose him over me every single day. Every lie you told, every fake excuse you made, every time you pretended to care about our marriage while planning your exit strategy with him. She was quiet for a long moment, and I could see her mind working, calculating, still trying to find an angle that would work in her favor. What about his job? She finally asked. If this comes out at work, it could ruin his career. Victoria's expression turned ice cold. Good. You can't be serious. He has responsibilities. Other people depend on him. Other people depend on honest leadership, I said. Not someone who abuses his position to sleep with subordinates. I'm not a subordinate, Natalie protested. We're equals. You report to him, Victoria pointed out. He controls your promotions, your assignments, your career advancement. How is that equal? It's not like he promised me anything in exchange for, she stopped mid-sentence, realizing what she'd almost admitted. In exchange for what? I asked quietly. She didn't answer, but the look on her face told us everything we needed to know. Victoria shook her head in disgust. Unbelievable. Not only were you having an affair, you were getting professional benefits from it. It wasn't like that, Natalie said quickly. Then explain the promotion you got last month, I said. The one you said came out of nowhere. The one you celebrated by texting him about how things were finally working out for both of you. Her mouth fell open. How could you possibly know about that text? Because I know about all the texts. Every single one, including the ones where you two discussed how convenient it was that his wife never questions his business decisions. Victoria stood up again, her composure finally cracking. My signature is on our tax returns. Returns that show his business income. Income that was apparently being used to pay for hotel rooms with you. That's enough, Natalie said, her voice rising. You've made your point. You've humiliated me enough. What do you want me to do now? I looked at her sitting there, still trying to control the situation, still trying to minimize what she'd done, still not showing any genuine understanding of the pain she'd caused. I want you to pack a bag, I said quietly. I want you to find somewhere else to stay tonight. And I want you to understand that this marriage is over. You can't kick me out of my own house. Actually, I can. My name is on the deed. Yours isn't. The final piece of her security crumbled. She'd never paid attention to those details, always assuming everything would work out in her favor somehow. Victoria gathered her purse and coat. I should go. I've got my own situation to handle. As she walked toward the door, she paused and looked back at Natalie. For what it's worth, you didn't just destroy your marriage tonight. You destroyed mine too. I hope whatever you thought you were getting was worth it. After Victoria left, the house felt impossibly quiet. Natalie sat on the couch staring at the floor, finally understanding that her carefully constructed double life had completely collapsed in the span of one evening. I never meant for it to happen this way, she said quietly. How did you mean for it to happen? I asked. She looked up at me with empty eyes. I don't know. I just never thought past the next meeting, the next text, the next time we could be together. I never thought about the ending. Well, I said, now you know what the ending looks like. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Natalie sat there staring at her hands, probably realizing for the first time that all her careful planning and secret meetings had led to this moment, complete exposure, complete loss of control. So what happens now? She asked without looking up. Now you pack a bag like I told you. Find somewhere to stay tonight. She finally looked at me, and I could see her scrambling for one last angle. This is my home too. You can't just throw me out because you're angry. I'm not throwing you out because I'm angry. I'm asking you to leave because continuing to live together while we divorce would be awkward for everyone involved, especially when your boyfriend finds out his wife just destroyed his career. Her eyes widened. What do you mean destroyed his career? Did you think Victoria was just going to quietly file for divorce and pretend nothing happened? She's been married to him for 12 years. She knows exactly where all his professional vulnerabilities are. She wouldn't do that. She seemed reasonable. I almost laughed. Reasonable? You think a woman who just discovered her husband has been cheating for 6 months is going to be reasonable about protecting his reputation? But if she ruins him professionally, it hurts her too. The alimony, the child support. She's a nurse practitioner with her own income. She doesn't need his money as much as he needs his reputation. I watched her process this information. Besides, affairs between supervisors and subordinates tend to create liability issues for companies. Human resources departments don't like liability. The color drained from her face as the implications hit her. They'll fire both of us. Probably, though he'll get fired for abuse of power and creating a hostile work environment. You'll just get fired for participating. She stood up abruptly and started pacing again. This is insane. You're destroying my entire life over this. I'm not destroying anything. I'm just refusing to pretend it didn't happen. But my job, my career, everything I've worked for. Should have thought about that before you decided your marriage vows were optional. She spun around to face me. You're enjoying this, aren't you? You're actually enjoying watching my life fall apart. I'm enjoying watching actions have consequences for once. You spent 6 months thinking you were smarter than everyone around you. Turns out you weren't. I never thought I was smarter than anyone. I just fell in love with someone else. You fell in love? I couldn't keep the sarcasm out of my voice. Is that what you call planning to abandon your marriage without having the courage to end it first? It's complicated when you're married. You can't just walk away from 8 years. You weren't walking away. You were having your cake and eating it too. Stable home life with me, exciting affair with him, and both of us paying the bills for your double life. She stopped pacing and looked at me with something that might have been genuine emotion for the first time all evening. Do you really hate me this much? I don't hate you at all. That's probably the saddest part of this whole thing. Sorry for me. Sorry that you threw away something genuine for something that was never going to last. Sorry that you chose lies over truth, excitement over stability, and selfishness over love. How do you know it wasn't going to last? Because it was built on deception from day one. Because he was willing to cheat on his wife, which means he'd be willing to cheat on you. Because you were willing to cheat on your husband, which means you'd be willing to cheat on him. She sat back down heavily. That's not true. What we have is different. What you have is shared guilt and the thrill of getting away with something. Take away the secrecy and the forbidden nature of it, and what's left? Love is left. Love doesn't lie to people for 6 months. Love doesn't mock the trust of innocent people. Love doesn't destroy families for personal satisfaction. Her phone buzzed on the floor where she'd dropped it earlier. She looked at it but didn't pick it up. Aren't you going to check that? I asked. Might be your boyfriend wondering why you haven't texted him tonight. Stop calling him that. What should I call him? Your business partner. Your future roommate. Your co-conspirator. The phone buzzed again and again. He's probably wondering where you are, I said. Probably expecting his usual midnight update about how your day went. What are you going to tell him about tonight? I don't know, she whispered. Maybe you should start with the truth. Tell him his wife knows everything. Tell him she's already filed for divorce. Tell him HR is probably going to get very interested in your working relationship. You think this is funny? I think it's justice. I think you both got exactly what you deserved. Her phone buzzed a 4th time. She finally picked it up and read the messages. I watched her face change as she realized Marcus had no idea what had just happened to his carefully ordered life. He doesn't know, she said quietly. Know what? That she knows that any of this happened tonight. He thinks everything is still normal. Well, tomorrow is going to be quite a wake-up call for him. She looked at me with something approaching panic. What if I don't tell him? What if I just disappear for a while until this blows over? Blows over. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You think this is going to blow over? Maybe if we stop seeing each other, if we both work to save our marriages. Your marriage is over. His marriage is over. Your jobs are probably over. There's nothing to save anymore. There has to be something, some way to fix this. I looked at her sitting there, still trying to find an escape route from the consequences of her own choices, and felt something that might have been pity. The way to fix this was to not do it in the first place. The way to fix this was to talk to me when you started feeling disconnected instead of finding someone else to connect with. The way to fix this was to end our marriage honorably instead of destroying it dishonorably. I can't go back and change what happened. No, you can't. But you can stop making it worse. How am I making it worse? By still trying to control the outcome. By still trying to manage the situation instead of accepting responsibility for it. She was quiet for a long time, staring at her phone as it buzzed with increasingly urgent messages from him. What am I supposed to do now? She finally asked. Pack a bag. Find somewhere to stay. Call a lawyer. Start dealing with the reality of what your choices have cost you. And then what? And then you figure out how to rebuild your life based on truth instead of lies. You figure out how to be the kind of person who deserves trust instead of the kind who betrays it. She stood up slowly, like she was carrying a weight I couldn't see. I never wanted it to end like this. How did you want it to end? I don't know. I never thought about the ending. That was your first mistake, I said. Everything has an ending. Every choice leads somewhere. You just chose not to think about where yours were leading. As she walked toward the stairs to pack her bag, she turned back one more time. Will you ever be able to forgive me? I considered the question seriously before answering. Someday, probably. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean pretending this didn't happen. Doesn't mean we could ever. No, I said firmly. It doesn't mean that. Some things can't be undone. Some trust can't be rebuilt. Some relationships can't survive the weight of betrayal. She nodded slowly and continued up the stairs. I could hear her moving around in the bedroom, opening drawers and closets, taking pieces of the life she'd thrown away. 20 minutes later, she came back downstairs with a suitcase and her car keys. I'll call you tomorrow, she said. To talk about logistics. Talk to my lawyer about logistics. I'll have him contact you once I hire one. So this is really it. This is really how it ends. I looked at her standing in the doorway with her suitcase, finally facing the consequences of 6 months of lies and betrayal. No, I said. This is how it begins. Your new life starts now. Make better choices this time. After she left, I sat in the quiet house and felt something I hadn't felt in months: peace. The lies were over. The pretending was over. The wondering and suspecting and questioning my own instincts was over. For the first time in 6 months, I knew exactly where I stood, and it felt like solid ground. I was sitting in my lawyer's office signing the final divorce papers. The process had moved faster than expected, mainly because she didn't contest anything. Hard to argue for a favorable settlement when the opposing side has 6 months of documented adultery. She's agreed to all terms, my attorney, Gregory Patterson, said, sliding the papers across his desk. No alimony, minimal asset division, and she's waiving any claim to the house. Smart of her, I replied. Fighting would have just made the evidence public. Speaking of evidence, I heard through professional channels that her former employer settled quietly with several affected parties. Apparently, this wasn't their first HR nightmare involving management. I wasn't surprised. Victoria had been thorough in her pursuit of justice. Her ex-husband, Marcus, had been terminated for cause within a week of her filing. Natalie had lasted 3 days longer before they found a reason to let her go as well. The drive home felt different now, lighter. The house was truly mine again, no longer a stage where someone performed the role of loving wife while planning her exit strategy. My phone rang as I pulled into the driveway. Victoria's name appeared on the screen. How did it go? She asked. Signed, sealed, delivered. How about you? Finalized last week. He's moved back in with his parents, if you can believe that. 42 years old and starting over in his childhood bedroom. I laughed. Poetic justice. The kids are adjusting well. Honestly, they barely noticed he was gone. Turns out his constant business trips hadn't made him much of a father anyway. And work. I picked up extra shifts at the hospital. Turns out being single again motivates you to focus on things that actually matter. We'd stayed in touch throughout the divorce proceedings, not romantically, but as allies who'd survived the same betrayal. She'd become a genuine friend, someone who understood exactly what it felt like to have your trust weaponized against you. Any regrets? She asked. About the divorce? None. About how I handled it? None. About trusting her in the first place? I paused. Maybe, but that's on me, not her. Don't do that. Don't blame yourself for believing someone when they promise to love you. Fair point. After we hung up, I walked through the house that felt like mine again. No more wondering where she really was when she said she was working late. No more analyzing her mood for signs of guilt or deception. No more living with someone who saw me as an obstacle to her happiness rather than a partner in building it. The kitchen counter where her phone used to charge looked empty now, but not in a sad way. in a clean way, like a surface that had been cleared for something new. I opened the laptop and checked my bank account. The divorce had been expensive, but not as expensive as continuing to fund someone else's double life would have been. My salary was mine again. My time was mine again. My peace of mind was mine again. The doorbell rang around 7. I opened it to find my neighbor, Eleanor Watson, holding a casserole dish. "Thought you might want a home-cooked meal," she said with a knowing smile. "Divorce diet isn't sustainable long-term." "How did you?" "Honey, the whole neighborhood knew something was up when she started leaving at odd hours and coming back looking like she'd been somewhere other than work." I accepted the casserole gratefully. "Why didn't anyone say anything?" "Because you're a grown man who needed to figure it out for yourself. But we were all rooting for you to wise up eventually." After she left, I sat down with my first home-cooked meal in weeks and realized something important: I wasn't alone. I had neighbors who cared, friends who'd supported me through the worst of it, and family who'd never liked her anyway but had been too polite to say so. My phone buzzed with a text from my brother, Daniel. "Drinks tonight to celebrate your freedom." I typed back, "Absolutely." For the first time in months, I was making plans for myself instead of working around someone else's secret schedule. For the first time in months, I could say yes to something without wondering what lies I'd be covering for. The woman who'd shared my bed for 8 years was gone. But she'd taken her deception with her. What remained was honest, clean, and entirely mine. 6 months ago, I discovered my wife was having an affair. Tonight, I was celebrating the end of a marriage that had been over long before I'd found those midnight messages. Some endings are actually beginnings in disguise.